I'm tired. This is the Rosette Nebula. Microphone action. Rosette Nebula through a 127 ED. So a 5-inch apochromatics telescope. There's a IMX 571 Sony sensor on it. On an Atlas EQG mount. Attracting PhD2. L Pro filter focused with a Batinoff mask, etc., etc. This is currently 15 minutes worth of subs. There's 3 5-minute images. I'm getting some pretty good depth. As I add more integrations to the image, a lot of the noise that's up in here will start to disappear, and it'll clean it up, and we'll get a lot more detail as I start adding more data. But so far it looks pretty good. Yeah, there's a delay by design in the live stream of about 5 or 10 seconds. And yes, I'm tired and I'm going to be yawning. integrations. These are 5-second exposures, so every 5-minute exposure, so every 5 minutes an image is added on or stacked on top, and it gets better and better and better, and I'll probably do about an hour on the rosette, which will make a nice lovely image that I'll end up processing at some point this week. But that's what it's all about. Take your time, get everything set up ahead of time, and then you just wait. Once you've got it all, once you've done all your work and all your homework, you just wait for the integrations to accumulate. Like I said, I'll take about an hour's worth of images of this guy. Maybe less, depending on if people show up and have questions that they put in the chat. And I'll move on to something else interesting. But for right now, it's all about the rosette. Down here on the right, you can see, well, maybe you can't, because let's see what we got here. Let's go with, that's me. Okay, we'll do it by itself here. And then down here on the right, you can see the time of integration. Got about 8 seconds left, and then it'll add another one. Okay. That just went to 4. We got a new image, got a little more detail, a little less noise. Somewhere around the 30-minute mark, it's really going to start to blossom. And I'm adjusting the histogram peak here to really flaunt the nebula. I could blow it way out, but I don't really like doing that. And I may take away some of the reds. That's adding a lot more in the saturation. Let's see what auto does. Yep. Very nice. calls later.
I'm sorry.
I don't believe you are sorry.
I don't want to, you know, I'm stitching.
Yeah, well, can you pull up your laptop at least on the table next to you and join my live stream?
Yeah, hold
And
on, let me go
and
get it.
and I posted the link on in Facebook
Oh, wonderful, honey.
to people, but I don't think anyone's showing up.
Well, it's not happening yet.
No, it's happening right now.
What do you mean it's happening right now?
Well, log into my live stream and say
Hold
hello.
on, hold on.
And then say something in the chat like, "What are you using?" or something. So I turned my mic off for right now, so
What did you want me to write?
whatever you want.
Where's my dessert, bitch? Okay, hold on.
I don't know about that.
You know. Okay. It's live.
Let me know if you see the link.
Hold on. Hold on, babe.
I'm holding.
Give me a second.
That's me. I need to shave. And then this
Too
is
late.
another one. Yeah, it's like 10 seconds. That's me with the all sky cam at the bottom.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the thing. And then there's the all sky cam.
That's cool.
And then it's clear, which is cool.
Better wicked bad stomach ache.
So let me know when you just see me full screen.
There you are.
You see me?
See you.
Okay. And now. Weird. Alright, so there's that one. They should be
There you go.
they should be changing. And then there's the all sky cam by
Okay,
itself.
gotcha. Gotcha.
You see the all sky cam by itself?
Yeah, there it is.
Alright. Brought the audio out for a little bit as I was making a phone call. Yeah, so the Rosette Nebula. Anybody can feel free to ask any questions if people decide to show up. single asteroid in here, and even though I have it set to remove satellite trails right there, it's still missed a detection. So it's doing it, but it must have come in within the first couple frames, which is totally believable. You can see it going all the way through there. That kind of sucks for the image, but still pretty cool. Very nice up in here. Still a very nice image of the Rosette Nebula, getting a lot of nebulosity showing up. Like I said, we'll do about an hour on it. I think we can take a couple exposures right now. I don't know what happened here. We got a little too much blue there. Let's fix that. That's better. Definitely chilly in here. I can turn on a little heater, but I didn't really want to. I'm down to about 43 now. Nose is running. Me. I'm trying to type. And it's dark. Okay, let's save that. Oh, somebody's here. Cool. Yeah, so we're looking at the Rosette Nebula, some of the nebulosity. It's looking pretty good, although we do have a satellite that it caught, unfortunately. Bane of my existence, but it's hard to image these days and not see them. But from this kind of outward view at full resolution, you can't really tell it's there unless you zoom in. We're getting a lot more detail and brightness. Darken the background a little. Looking good. This is interesting in here. Being injected out in front. And then all these areas here are dust. It's a little too much saturation there. Oh yeah, oh look at that, so much better. I prefer that. Jump that back out. You hear me? I can see your text. I can't type in the cold. I can't hear you, but you shouldn't expect that I would be able to. But the Rosette looks really cool. Can you hear me? I don't know what these emojis do. Didn't put one in there. Uh-oh. I just got completely reamed out. Anyway, yeah, we're looking at the Rosette Nebula because Tracy was just yelling at me. Tracy, if you can hear me, say yes in the chat, please. Yeah, I can hear me if I turn the audio on. Nice and loud. I'll just type in. She made a good point. I should probably put it in the chat of what we're looking at here. Although typing in the dark is kind of tough. Yes, I can hear you. Finally. Currently looking. I really cannot type. At live image of the Rosette Nebula. Looking for a period. Can't see anything. Yeah, well, you should get your earbuds. Put one in anyway. And, yeah, there we go. So, I'm not sure. There's like this emoji thing. Let's see if I type. Oh, there's also. Oh, here we go. She's back. All right, so back again. All right. Let's go with. Oh, look at all these emojis. So many. I don't know what I want. Let's search moon. Oh, yeah, ooh, lots of good ones here. I think that's a moon pie. Okay. Again, we're looking at the Rosette, and it's accumulating. We've got 55 minutes of exposures at this point, which is cool. But we're getting a lot of that blue channel, and I really want to tamp it down a bit. But if I do that, I'll end up with a lot of green, so that's not too bad. So we'll do 5 more minutes of exposures, and then I'll save off a couple images and then probably move on to another object. Meanwhile, I'll do a little reconnaissance and figure out what it is I want to look at here. We'll bring in Stellarium, which is a planetarium program that I'm using to just pick some objects. Find something that I think is cool. Right now we're looking at the Rosette, and that's where my telescope is pointed to. These are nice, but they're not really that great. That guy's interesting. Ooh, yeah, we'll do the monkey head. That'll be next. west. Okay. All right. I was just replying to somebody on Facebook that asked a question about the live stream tomorrow, which will be observing the eclipse of the sun, which is a total solar eclipse. Is basically, it's actually a lunar eclipse, really, but it's where the moon passes in between the Earth and the sun, and because of the relationship of the sizes of the moon and the distance to the from the Earth to the sun, the moon appears to basically take up the exact size of the disk of the sun, making a really cool eclipse, which will only be visible for that couple hundred miles that are in the eclipse zone. But here in Western Mass, we should have anywhere between 93 and 95% of the eclipse visible, and that should be really neat. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I have a couple animations that might be valid to show here. Maybe not. Anyway, I'll do it tomorrow on the live stream. But yeah, it's going to look really cool. But not only are we going to see the eclipse, but it'll be a really good high resolution image of the sun itself, very close up to it. So we'll be able to see sunspots and prominences and filaments, and take live video of that as well. It should be pretty nice. So again, we're getting a lot of that blue with the exposures, but let's bring down the blue ever so slightly. There we go. These are the histogram peaks for all the colors that you can see here. RGB and luminance, which is white. And I'm keeping the left line here just behind the peak. The middle line is going to be basically my brightness or levels, and then it's listed as black level, mid level, and white level. But the mid level in this application acts mainly as my brightness, and the white level acts as basically the background tone. So I'm just constantly adjusting those every time we get a new exposure. So now we have 12 exposures, 60 seconds. They're 5-minute exposures each. And now that we have this, I'm going to save off a couple images, and I'll use these images some point this next week to process a final image of this guy. It'll be better than the image on the screen here, obviously, because it'll be a processed image that I'll take some time and work on. But the live image on the screen here is pretty good. We've got a lot of nice detail in there, lots of filaments, lots of dust lanes. Very nice. And we'll do a little zoom in here before I move on to another object. You can see the dark dust bands that are in here. I'll zoom in on those a little more. Oh yeah, they look great. And we got a satellite, as I said earlier. Probably came in the first image because it was removing satellites after pretty much it does one image. It'll then be able to analyze the rest and remove any, but it looks like in the first image it caught one, which is unfortunate. Oh, and there's another one right there as well. These days you can't take a picture of anything in the sky without satellites moving through it. It's just so polluted in the sky, it's ridiculous. Very disappointing. Yep. Well, that looks really cool. Very nice. Oh yeah, man. Rosette Nebula. I'm going to move in just a moment here to another nebula, and we'll start getting accumulations of that, and it's going to be the monkey paw, which I still think is above my house here to the west, and should make a good image. I just want to get one more integration here, which it's currently doing. Oops. Yeah, very nice though. Now, the more integrations I took, the more images, the smoother and cleaner and less noisy this would appear. If I did 2 hours, it would truly be a nice image, but I'm going to be a little impatient tonight since I'm doing a live stream. And I'm going to switch to another object, which will, so we're not just staring at the same thing. But staring at the same thing is kind of what taking images and being an astrophotographer is all about, actually. But typically I would set these things and then check them every 20 or 30 minutes, and then process them all a few days later. And that is the life of an astronomer. Yeah, that last integration really cranked the brightness, or my neighbors turned their lights on. We'll have to see here if it got really crazy. Yeah, it looks like they turned some lights on. They're super bright now. That's great. Anyway, we can fix that. Some of that green. Oh yeah, much better. Looking good, man. I'll give it 4 more minutes. That'll get me 7 minutes of exposures. 70, excuse me. If anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and I'll answer them best I can. If you want to know about the equipment that's being used, or you have any questions for tomorrow's stream, anything of the sort, happy to respond. Yeah, everything's working. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. It does look pretty cool. We got 3 more minutes, and then I'll put it over to the monkey paw, which is a pretty cool looking nebula. Although it's going to be much dimmer. The rosette is very bright, and with good accumulations from a good camera, you can really get an amazing image out of it. Which is why I chose it for the first object for this evening. It's very cool. Temperature in here right now, 43 degrees. My nose is frozen. But we're hunkering down and sticking with it. Really getting a lot of good detail up here, which I like a lot. This kind of dark nebula mottling that's in here looks very nice. It'll really pop when I go to do the final processing. All of this stuff will just look really great, and everything will be super smooth. That's the value of processing your images after. But if you're doing outreach or live streams or whatever, you can still get a really good image live on the screen. The key is stacking and integrations to make it really look, as good as this does right now, which, is pretty good. Alright. Just over a minute left here. Like I said, I'm going to do 70 minutes of exposure time, which is 14 5-minute exposures. And then we'll tighten up the histogram, save it off, and move on to another object. Shows 2 people watching. I wonder who that second person is. Tracy posted she shared the link to this live stream, and I will post another one obviously tomorrow. So I hope people can join up, and if you're not able to, if you don't have solar glasses, definitely don't be spending a lot of time looking at it. It'll blow your eyes out. It could really damage you. But if you want to kind of look at it, you could make a pinhole camera. Just cut a tiny hole with a toothpick or something into a piece of cardboard, set it up on a little stand, and have it point at a piece of paper behind the cardboard, and it'll probably produce a pretty good image. And then you look obviously away from the sun at the piece of paper, and you'll see a pretty good image of the sun, and that's a good way to observe the sun in a safe way. They call it a pinhole camera. And of course there are many other ways to do it. Some of you may have eclipse glasses and things like that. And those are all valid ways, but if you can't get a chance to see it for some reason, you can join my live stream, or you can be outside looking at it and join my live stream. All those are perfectly valid options. Let's take away a little bit of that green. There we go. That looks pretty good. And then we'll save off this image, and then we'll change it to the monkey paw. Just a moment. More So, we'll get this ready to rock here. Clear our exposure. Nope. Nope. And we'll set up for a new image. Call it the monkey. And since we're moving to a new object, there's a few queuing things that really need to happen here. Take that off. So that's what you're seeing on the screen briefly here is our 1 second live exposures of what the rosette actually looks like. If you could get magnification this good with your own eye, it would look like this, about that bright. That's about the brightness of what your eye can achieve. But we were doing 5-minute exposures and they were producing that incredible nebula. That incredible nebula is actually right here. You'd never know it, but believe me, it's there. So give me just a minute here and I'll fire up the next object. Let's find it. Spaghetti Nebula is too big. Flynn Star. There it is. Monkey head. Alright, now we're going to move the telescope. You'll see the stars kind of whisk away. Just give me a minute and we'll make sure that the dome is turned enough to get a good shot of it. Okay. Awesome. Now I'm back. We have a new set of stars on the screen here. I'm going to do a quick plate solve. Make sure we're on the exact right spot. We were 0.09 degrees off, so just barely off. It's perfect. I'm going to turn on remove satellite trails because, like I was saying, you can't, anywhere you look now is just satellite trails. So I set my gain to the optimal gain for my camera, which is 110. And then we'll go back to 5-minute exposures. And then we'll live stack and see what we get here. Now I'm going to reset my histogram. And we'll make all fresh adjustments. Now, but see here for cool. I saw somebody jump on just as I was switching. And they're probably like, hey, there's nothing on the screen. That figures. But that's okay. We'll have an image in 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Yeah, man. Okay, so I'll reply to some Facebook stuff. Yeah, hopefully we get a few people joining up tomorrow. I actually have to work, but I think they're gonna cut me a little bit of slack. Maybe I'll use it as a first quarter goals or second quarter goals outreach. I can apply it to my corporate goals. I'm sure no one knows what I'm talking about. That's fair enough. Yeah, 43 degrees, nice and chilly. Oh, of course, I haven't been guiding, which is unfortunate. That was a mistake on my part. We'll see how our first image is. 2 minutes and 45 seconds to go. So the next image we're going to look at here, I'll put it into the chat. The keyboard's very dark, hard to see. Two minutes left for that accumulation. We'll have to see how the first image comes out. I wasn't guiding at the time. Guiding is when you're pointing another small telescope attached to the bigger telescope at a star and guiding on that. So any micro movements of that star are tracked and followed by this tiny little telescope, which is attached to my big telescope, and that keeps the mount basically perfectly on the object that I'm looking at. But I wasn't guiding for the first 2 minutes of this image, an oversight on my part. So we'll see in 1 minute if the first image is acceptable. If it is, great. If not, we'll have to do another one, which is fine because I have to run out to pee anyway. We got a couple people watching right now. Just you missed the Rosette Nebula, which looked fantastic. Had that going for about an hour, a little over an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes. And now we're about to display the next object tonight, which is the Monkey Head Nebula. And as I accumulate 5-minute exposures of it, it'll start to get better and better and better and look better. We're about 25 seconds away here. Guiding is going pretty well right now. I can show you the guiding log, which looks okay on this screen. That's basically the center line. It's moving both the right ascension and the declination axis in tiny little movements, but keeping it generally in the center. Alright, so there's our first image. It looks a little wishy-washy, so I may toss it. Yeah, the stars are elongated, and that's because we weren't guiding for the first 2.5 minutes of the exposure. So I'm going to clear this exposure. The next ones we get will be very nice. The next one, and that will be in 4 minutes. I'm going to run out and go pee, and I'll be right back. back. 2 minutes to go. 2 minutes and 30 seconds, that is. Ooh, temperature's dropping. 41. Might have to turn the heater on. Alright, just checking out some of the folks that saw the Facebook live stream. I know it's getting kind of late. It's probably most people are in bed. But this is prime time for observing. And it's 11 p.m. just about. We should have a new object up on the screen in 1 minute and 20 seconds. And we'll see how that goes. Okay, just about there. I could use a guiding calibration. It's not as good as it was when we were doing the rosette, but it is good enough for our purposes tonight. Getting some oscillations in between the worm cycle that can be cleaned up with a calibration, but overall it's well within tolerances. Alright, first image. And we'll zoom in on this and verify that the stars are round, and they are. Very good. And then we'll do our first bit of, well, you can see the nebula there. I'm going to kind of automatically doing a little histogram calibration. It'll tighten up our peak. There we go. And now I'll manually make some adjustments. Oh yeah, that's a good looker. Look at that guy. So cool. This nebula is very unusual. It has this kind of windswept kind of appearance. But I don't like the amount of blue and green. Looks like too much red. Huh, that's pretty good. So initially, the first image is grainy. It has some detail, but is nowhere near as good as it's gonna get as it starts to accumulate more frames. And then, the nebula will really start to pop. that's the best part of stacking images. It really matters. But we're getting good histogram calibration. I managed to take some good quality darks and a good flat tonight, which other than this is basically, you see how light this side of the frame is. This is because this is aimed down towards the ground right here, so you're seeing light coming up from the neighbors, and reflection off the snow, that type of thing. Even though it has a very low albedo, it's still enough to show up in a 5-minute exposure, so you end up with an uneven frame. Even with a nebula or a sky glow filter, which I do have on, I'm rocking an L Pro right here filter, and that's taking care of some of it. But the calibration frames, the dark frame is there to remove hot pixels. That isn't really needed, but helps to calibrate the flat, and then the flat frame removes like dust bunnies and any other image train issues. And then we're just left with the background, and I'll take out the background and make that perfectly even when I go to process the image some point this week. Hey, Dan. Awesome. I just looked over at the chat. My apologies for not being more attentive. Dan is an old friend from high school. Great guy. Glad you're here, man. That's very cool. Who names these? Tracy says. In the case of a lot of them, obviously the names are Arabic or Greek, and those are just the most creative ones that have stuck. Basically, there was a golden age of the Babylonians and the Iraqis that named the majority of the objects in the sky that we still use today in the 20th century. But some of the more simplistic or creative names, like the monkey head, are more modern naming schemes. So this one certainly fits that bill. But when I go to process it, it really has kind of a hair. It looks like hair draping down on this side. And so it actually does have kind of a monkey head appearance. So, I mean, it makes sense. Dan, yeah, man. I hear you. Facebook is ridiculous. It's terrible. But, getting the word out, using it sometimes helps for me in this situation. Not that I do a lot of live streams, but special events like this. I'm prepping for tomorrow's solar eclipse. So if you saw the alert, I'll be doing that tomorrow. Please join. But yeah, I don't blame you, man, for not being on Facebook much. Life is so much more important and valuable. But again, it's cool to see that you're here, and it'd be great to catch up at some point. Well, I got a couple new subscribers today. That's good. My paltry 87 subscribers, but they're all valuable. So with the 2 exposures, the detail has improved dramatically over the first. Some of the graininess has gone away, and that, of course, will improve dramatically with each new exposure. We can do a little bit of a zoom here. It's still not going to be great yet. Probably around the 20-30 minute mark, things will really start to pop, and you can see a lot of the detail starting to appear here in the upper edge, and we can start to make out some of the flowiness of the nebula on this side, especially in there, which kind of gives it its monkey appearance. I think I haven't rotated the camera, so if I put this as the face, this section here, and rotated it, it may appear more like a monkey. But whatever. I think when it's processed, this section here looks kind of like the surface of a golf ball or brains, something like that. But it's hard to tell right now because we only have 10 minutes of exposures. Currently, Dan, we're looking at 2 5-minute exposures, so a total of 10 minutes, and I will get rid of the on-screen garbage. Yeah, so like I said, these are just 5-minute exposures each, and after about maybe 20 minutes or so, the image starts to really clean up as we're adding exposures and accumulating more light, more data. I've got 1 minute and 20 seconds till we get the third one, and then I'll do a histogram adjustment, and it'll clean up even more. But already it looks pretty cool. There's just a lot of sky glow, and this is basically LED lighting that's causing all this right side to be lighter and blown out. I'll remove it all in post, but it's still annoying. Definitely looking forward to the eclipse tomorrow. It should be a lot of fun. We should be able to get some good images. I'll try to do some live adjustment of the sun image. The sun image is a very different type of animal. It's basically like live video, maybe 10 to 20 frames per second. Similar, just a little bit less to what an actual movie would be. You know, cinematic movies like 24 frames per second. I will be doing somewhere between 10 and 20. So we'll catch things like airplanes and birds or things like that might fly by. I caught one today doing a test. It was pretty cool. An airplane, that is. Alright, so we got another exposure, and things got a little cleaner. But we'll do a little adjustment here. Yep. I'll take care of that background a little bit. Oh yeah, much better. Bring up the saturation. No, that's too much. And what does it look like without a lot? Ooh, I like that. Meet it in the middle. Montana, huh? Well, I'm in Mass, Western Mass, and we should get between 93 and 95% of the eclipse. Well, that's not totality, but it should still look pretty cool. It's just about the most we've had in Massachusetts for quite a few years that I can recall, as far as an eclipse goes. But it should look pretty cool. We'll definitely be able to see prominences and sunspots and filaments the whole time, and then the moon will start to transit the surface, and we'll basically be able to see the occultation of the moon against those objects like the sunspots and prominences. It should look really cool. But this has definitely improved a bit here. We still have this kind of noisy background stuff here, but that will disappear as we add more accumulations. Light pollution. Well, yeah, sorry, I guess I was talking about that. Yeah, absolutely. Darker skies would be great. I'm pretty fortunate where I am. I'm in Hinsdale, Mass, and pretty good elevation. I mean, I can't really help my neighbors too much. It is what it is, but it's better than most. So I'm not complaining. And I live right off a lake, which takes care of a lot of that air as it kind of scoops across the lake. It swings up over the trees over my house and gives me pretty good seeing generally. But it's just been so cloudy lately anyway. I haven't had a chance to do any imaging. But yeah, if I had enough cash to have a second home, it would definitely be out west. Maybe someday. So we are at 3 exposures, 15 minutes worth of exposures. Have about a minute and 40 seconds left of our next exposure. And the monkey head is looking pretty good. Stars are getting some nice color. There's probably 100 to 1,000 little galaxies in this image. Yeah, there's one. Stars are getting a little bit long in the corner, but that's a product of the focal reducer. See if we can spot another one. That looks like one right there. Pretty much anywhere you look, there are galaxies. There's one. Look at that guy. That's pretty cool. And there's others in here that are just not very obvious. I think after this I will do a galaxy. Andromeda is pretty much down, so that's out of the picture, but there are a few good ones still up. I'm just quickly scanning here. See if I spot anything. Oh, that's a nice little triple star system there. They all could be at different light years apart from each other. You wouldn't know, just from our vantage point. I don't see anything. But yeah, we just got another image. Oh yeah. Looking pretty good. The monkey paw I will take out to 30 minutes, and then we'll pick another object. Bringing into view the planetarium software. And we'll go over towards the east-ish. Yeah, there's all this great stuff down on the horizon and not much in the sky. Otherwise, a bunch of galaxies here and there, but they're nothing special. That would be a planetary nebula, very tiny. Bubble galaxy. Yeah, we'll look at the Leo triplet, I think. Yeah. It could be good, although it's pretty tiny. Look at all these galaxies. Mercurian's chain. I think I'll do the eyes and we'll see what we can get into the image. Yeah. Although Virgo would be pretty cool too. But that's more just a swirling blob. It's possible I can get some of these in the same image. We'll give it a try. Streak. Minutes left, and then we'll do one more and then I'll switch. Guiding has been pretty good, but we just took a nice little dip there. Damn monkey. Yeah, very cool. Nice. Okay, we have another integration about to pop in. There it goes. Look how much brighter. Oh, I'm gonna try to fight that at every turn. Sky glow. And bring down some of the saturation of the nebula itself. Fine line. Let's see what it does automatic. Yeah, it brightens everything way the hell up. Oh, I was clipping it. So I'll take some of that out with blue and green. Yep. Alright, 3 minutes and 20 seconds, and we'll jump over to another object. This is the Monkey Head Nebula, in case you're just joining us. With a lot of sky glow. And that's just because of the area in the sky that I'm imaging. It's just low right above my house to the west. We're going to go over to the east. It should be nice darker skies. 41 degrees in here. I don't have the heater on. Definitely a little chilly. But I'm sure tomorrow during the eclipse I'll be in a t-shirt or something because it's going to probably be in the 60s. Which will be welcome. Yeah, this could definitely use 2 hours of integrations to get a really nice clean image. It's just my patience is limited due to the live stream. So we're going to do 30 minutes on this. Right now we're at 25. We have 1 minute and 35 seconds left to go on this integration. So we'll do 6 5-minute exposures. We'll clean up the histogram, take a couple snapshots of it that I'll process later in the week, which, I'll make a good image out of it. And then we'll move on to something else. We're going to try galaxies. It should look cool, but I don't know how cool. It depends. Typically, you're looking at about 100 megs per individual exposure. Obviously, videos are much bigger, but these are just single raw images. So about 100 megs, anywhere from 50 to 100, depending on the camera that I'm using. This particular camera here has a resolution of 6248 by 4176, so it's like, it's massive. It's absolutely huge. It's bigger than, like 4K monitors wide, right? It's just insane. It has a huge resolution. So you can really, have and also depending on the scope that you're using, you can have a nice wide field of view. Now this doesn't have the widest field of view of some of my other telescopes, but it's a nice mid-balance of power and width. Alright, we just got our exposure, should be popping in here any second. Let's see what she's saying on my phone. Tracy is telling me to answer you through the chat, but it's because her speakers aren't working very well and she can't hear me, but I think you can hear me. Can't you, Dan? If you can't hear me, I apologize. If you can, let me know in the chat. Alright, so I'm just going to clean up the histogram on this guy real quick. Take away some of that exposure just a titch. Bring up our darkness. Ah, my man. Appreciate it. He can hear me, Trace. Thank you, Dan. Alright. Let me just save off some images and then we'll move on. And like I said, I'll process those later in the week and get some final images to publish. Alright, so we're going to clear that, clear all this. We don't care about that. I'll just put chain. My keyboard's terrible. Stop guiding. Set the camera. Take off the satellite trail removal. Alright, bear with me just a sec. So right now I'm slewing the telescope to a different object, and you should see it actually. You'll see the little cursor kind of fly over here in just a moment. There it goes. Nice. And I'll do some finalization here. I'm going to move the dome. Now the dome has been moved. I don't automate my dome. I could. I've done it years ago, but I don't. Just easier to do it. I can see a galaxy on the screen already. With just a 1 second exposure, but I think what we'll do is do a plate solve. This is basically me taking a picture and then comparing it against a sky catalog, and the system is smart enough to know that there's a bunch of galaxies in this picture. They're going to be tiny, but it's smart enough to know where it is and basically finalize the alignment. So I think that's going to be the eyes down there. Let's start guiding this time. There we go. Turn on our satellite removal, just because it's always better with it. Set our gain. We'll do 2-minute exposures for the galaxy and start a live stack. Oh, our guiding is not good. That's not good. We're going to have to do a calibration. Yep. Okay. So we're going to start this over. Look at all the galaxies that are going to be in this image once it gets going. Alright, so I gotta do a calibration because our guiding is absolute crap. Let that go for a minute. Yeah, she doesn't have a lot of headroom on the speakers on her laptop, which is kind of sitting away from her, and she's watching TV, so she doesn't want to put her earbuds in. So she can't really hear me. And that's fine. So currently I'm doing a guiding calibration, and it's moving the telescope ever so slightly in the four cardinal directions, and basically telling, figuring out how many steps it takes based on the region of the sky for each direction. It's the east step, it then clears the backlash, and then it'll go on to the next cardinal direction. And hopefully we'll get a good calibration. And the reason why I have to calibrate is because different parts of the sky, different angles of the scope. Usually if I go about 30 degrees, I've got to calibrate again. Which takes a couple minutes, no big deal. This is just the sausage making, how it's done. And when it's done with the calibration, it'll move it back into the center of that crosshair there, and start guiding on it. And we'll keep an eye on the log, and hopefully we'll get a pretty good guiding log, and then we can fire up our accumulations. Alright. So it's guiding now. Let's see if it can maintain guiding in the log. So it's deviating a little, but it corrected. This is basically live over here on the right. My deck is drooping big time. Let's see if it corrects. That could be a dither. Yeah, it looks like it's going to correct. Jeez. I think I must be off balance on the scope. Come on, make your correction. Alright. Yeah, deck is having a really hard time right now. Okay, I think I got it back in line here. Okay, good. Now we can move on. Oops. Two-minute exposures. Guiding looks better. So for galaxies, I'm going to do a shorter exposure rather than 5 minutes. We'll do 2-minute exposures. Which will make our joy a little bit quicker and should work a little bit better for galaxies. Currently I'm cooling the sensor on the chip to negative 10 degrees Celsius, which is very good, right where I want it to be. And if we can get a couple galaxies up here and get a few good exposures, that'll probably be a successful test for the evening, and go in and get some Z's and fire it all up tomorrow. Sometime probably around noon. I think for us the eclipse starts to happen around 2 o'clock. I'll probably fire up a little bit earlier than that, hour or so. Because we'll be looking at the sun, and the sun will actually be awesome with prominences and sunspots and such. The sun's basically awesome to look at anytime, regardless of an eclipse. That just is a massive value add. All right, we got 6 seconds here until this exposure is in the books. Okay, where's my exposure? Ooh, something's going on. Hmm. 110, 2 minutes. Could be the satellite trails that are causing it to not be where I want it. Wait for the second exposure and see what the hell's going on. Also, I'm seeing banding, so I think I'll get rid of the satellite removal. And see if that improves things. On the second exposure, oh, so we're rejecting frames. Do we have clouds? No, no clouds. Just a lot of neighbor light. We'll clear that and see if it's the rejection of the satellite. Interesting. Yeah, we got good guiding. Everything is where it's supposed to be. good frames, and it rejected several. So I'm thinking maybe that was because I had satellite removal, which can be kind of funky sometimes. My gain is right where it's supposed to be. Integrations are correct. I'll give it 20 seconds and see what she says. Okay, that's a little bit better. Yeah. Look at all the galaxies. Jesus Christ. There's gotta be 30 in the image. Just visible ones. They're everywhere, and I'm actually going to start to point them out in just a moment. My God. We don't need that kind of an exposure, though. After the second or third integration, it'll really clean up nicely. Now, none of these are big galaxies. I'm not going for big ones. There's a couple out there right now that we could hit, but I'm going for quantity. Just raw galaxy count in the same frame. And this definitely is going to achieve that. So, galaxy, galaxy, galaxy. That's 3, 4, 5. That's a galaxy. 6, 7, 8. There's one down here, but I'm not going to count that. There's another one right there. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. They're everywhere. 18, 9. There's like maybe 100 here. Boom, 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 boom. These are all galaxies. Those two are galaxies right there. Fuzzy stars. But we'll get a little bit of a zoom. I wonder, I think these are the eyes right here. They're called the eyes. But I wonder what that is down there. We could make an adjustment, but I don't want to start my guiding again. Okay, we got 2 frames. Yes, so guiding scope, separate guiding camera. That's exactly right. So for instance, you're looking at the main camera in the galaxy image, and then in this screen that I'm bringing down here, this is a guiding camera. It's a very tiny image, tiny little camera, tiny little telescope. Fit in the palm of your hand, and basically that's just for looking at stars, and it's guiding on a single star right now. So yes, separate, and the connection for all of these is no longer serial connection, although it still is because it's USB, but USB is serial bus, so it's a universal serial bus. But yes, everything is serial, but it's all USB connections, and in the case of these cameras, USB 3.0. But yeah, and this is only going to get better and better and better, like as everything kind of cleans up. But look at all the galaxies; it's just so cool. Yeah, so I guide on pretty much everything I image except for the sun, because there's really no stars to be seen to guide on. I could guide on sunspots if I wanted to, but I really don't expose my cameras to the sun in any raw form, other than through specific telescopes that I have, and I have a couple that have solar filters. Right, they're specifically tuned for the wavelengths of the sun to pass visible light at a very tiny amount of it. It's basically like wearing welding glasses. and that's what we'll be using tomorrow for the live stream of the eclipse. But other than that, I really would never, even though most of the cameras could probably handle it, I would never do that. It's too much money invested in the cameras to let them look at a raw, non-filtered image of the sun. So yeah. So guiding is primarily for deep sky. Yeah, let's zoom in a little bit on the eyes there, because the eyes are very cool. Look at that. And it's only going to get better as we get some more integrations. We're only doing 2-minute exposures, so there really isn't a ton of accumulation happening, but basically I'm going to try to explain this. Oh, so damn good question, Dan. How do I track? Well, the mount itself is calibrated to track in a couple different ways. So it can track in a sidereal movement, which is basically the speed that the Earth rotates in relation to the sky. That's called sidereal. And that's basically the star rate. Another common rate would be the lunar rate. The moon moves at a rate different from the stars. So the mount itself has that general speed as a choosable, movement. And then also there is the solar rate, which, not to be confused with solar stars, it's purely for the sun. So the rate that the Earth spins in relation to the sun. So all those different rates can be chosen, and the mount will approximate them. Now that all comes down to polar alignment. So the scopes that I'm using here to do most of this, and specifically the one in the observatory dome, is on a pier, and the mount itself is pitched up at 42 degrees, which is the latitude here in Hinsdale, Mass. And that points in the general position of Polaris, the North Star, which is generally where the North Celestial Pole is. And assuming that you're really well polar aligned, a really high quality mount should keep you tracking an object pretty damn well. For my purposes, it's not good enough, which is why I guide, and most other people do. But there are now recent mounts that just came out in the last couple of years called Strain Wave that are even better. They're a lot more expensive, but the day will come when I get one, and I won't need to guide. But for the last 20 years or 30 years, really, I've had to guide. I have high-end stuff, and I've pretty much always had pretty good stuff. But anyway, that's the whole purpose of that. So tomorrow with the sun, my field of view, I'll be using a new camera that has a field of view that just fits the sun in it. I could use a different camera, but it won't be quite as good looking. This one handles a higher frame rate, so I'm going to use it. So I'll be making occasional tiny adjustments to keep the mount on the sun. It won't be very often, every few minutes. I'll just tap it a little bit on the screen and adjust it. But yeah, that's what that's all about. Meanwhile, back to the eyes here. These two galaxies, basically one of them is being ripped apart. In fact, has already been ripped apart and is casting off half of its dust lanes, or spiral arms, if you were. Let me find a better picture of it. I'll show you. Let's see if I can find something. Okay, yeah, that one's pretty good. And that's a better image of it. That's probably, I don't know, 8 hours worth of exposures, maybe longer, in multiple wavelengths to achieve that kind of clarity and data. And they're using a whole bunch of different imaging techniques. I've done 15 minutes, and but I could approximate that if I accumulated for 8 hours. Get pretty close to it. get a pretty good image. This is a slightly larger telescope, also as well. Possibly even, I don't think it's a Hubble image, but no, somebody's just using a very large scope. Yeah, it's a it's a 24-inch scope. So I'm running a 5-inch scope, but I can get pretty close to it. Yeah, that's the eyes. But you can see it's just being ripped to shreds. Completely ripped to shreds. And you got to assume it's a spiral galaxy that's sort of not quite edge on to us, whereas the barred galaxy below it, you can see the bar, is more kind of like a flat disk in front of our face. But this guy here is at an angle, so almost edge on, and it would be a spiral similar to our own Milky Way. So as this other galaxy is moving by it or coming close to it, their gravities are attracting each other, and it's just ripping it to shreds. Yeah, so you got to imagine that's probably not a great day for those folks. Let me respond here. Yes, the tracking, depending on what rate I choose, will totally compensate for that, and we'll keep an object right there on the screen for the whole night. Would go around all day, but I wouldn't let it do that because it'll hit the tripod after a bunch of hours. But as we accumulate more, let's see. This is actually, even though it looks a little rough, is still starting to improve. We've only got 12 minutes on this guy so far. That's nothing. But we're starting to get more detail on some of the other galaxies. And if I zoom out, well, there's a big delay in the live stream. Okay. And then let's do a zoom on some of these other guys and see. These are massive galaxies, but in relation to some of the galaxies that we would normally look at, these are tiny little blobs, you know. There's not much to them. But anyway, let's look at this guy who has a good amount of detail. Yeah. Very cool. And I'll do 20 minutes on these galaxies, and that's all, and then I'll move to another object because these look so cool. It motivated me a little bit. Just give me a sec to veer off and find something else. Oh, I think we'll take a look at the sombrero if it's just high enough. That's going to be tiny, but it should be pretty nice looking. Yeah, so we'll give this a few more minutes, and then we'll do the sombrero. Let's make an adjustment here. Start to get some good color in these now. Look at that. That's super cool. Another little galaxy right there. Man, I didn't expect that out of that little thing. That's just amazing. There's hundreds of galaxies in this image. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do 20 minutes on it. Save it off. And jump over to the sombrero. I see a little barred spiral over here. Where are you? Yeah, that guy right there. Interesting. But yeah, these aren't like super impressive. Let me look and see if I can blow the mind. Sombrero is in the south. Let's go east. Alright. Now it's going to keep me up all night because there's so many cool objects coming up. Okay, one more exposure. We'll hit 20 minutes, so we have 1 minute and 45 seconds left. And with every exposure, the image is getting better and better, and cleaner and cleaner. Typically I would have been better suited to do 5-minute exposures on these, but I wanted results for the live stream, so I was impatient. But yeah, that is starting to look pretty cool. Thanks, man. I'm really glad you showed up too. You're keeping me fully occupied. I love it. 20 seconds of this guy. Alright. We got our 20 minutes of exposures. You know, it could handle 8 hours. That's what it wants. But I don't have the patience for that. So we'll save this off. Oops. Save. Alright. Then we'll make a quick change. Stop guiding. switch. Okay, I can see it right down there. Let's do a plate solve. This is going to be tiny too, but we'll see what we can't do with the exposures. Yeah, probably too tiny, but we won't do too long. Okay, let's start the guiding. I have checked out the comet. I have some images of it. It's just that every time I've gone to observe it, it pops below some trees, and I've been too busy to take a portable rig a few miles away. So I simply haven't, like spent a lot of good time with it. I've seen it, 20 times now, poorly with trees in the way and stuff here. Just nothing that I would post, unfortunately. But the devil comet, it cracks me up that people call that. Sombrero. I think I didn't type that correct. Sombrero. Let's go here. Okay. So now I'm doing 5-minute exposures. So I'll wait. But that'll give us our best chance of seeing the sombrero. Yeah, the comet looks amazing. Let me see if I can pull up an image that I might have on the computer here. It's possible. Where's my sharp cap? Maybe. Oh yeah, some of these are going to be garbage. Clearly. Yeah, that's not good either. I know I took some good ones recently. I have to figure out where they are, though. I mean, they're not great, but they're okay. Was there anything prior to that? That's okay. Okay, let's see. Anything else? Yeah, I'll have to go through them. I was planning on doing it another time. I had one, maybe 5-minute window, and that's basically all I've had of anything of any value. Yeah, okay. That's probably my best so far, unprocessed. Yeah, this is ponds. Yeah, so that's unprocessed, but you can definitely see the ion tail really easily. You have the stellar winds pushing that way, right? That's the solar wind. but its trajectory is moving up that way, which is where the ions go. They're not as affected by the solar wind as the rest of the tail, the hydrogen and all that crap. But ions typically blue, and that looks really cool. I will process this image, but you can see over here, this kind of crap. This is all trees. So like the tree comes to right about there. So this is about the best I've been able to do. If I didn't have a tree in the way, I'd have awesome images of it processed, and they'd look super cool and be colorful and just be awesome. But I've been pretty demoralized about it. But it is what it is. That's the story. But that's cool. That was a little deviation. I got 56 seconds here to go before our first image. Guiding looks good. The sombrero will look super cool. It's going to be tiny. You need a large scope to really make it good, and I'm not using any of my big ones here. I have this is 127 millimeter, which is basically a 5-inch refractor. A pretty big scope, but in comparison to my 20-inch, it's nothing, or my 11-inch Castagrain. It's tiny, but it's good for the bigger objects. All right, almost there. There we go. Down to 39 in here now. Oh yeah. Now the sombrero is an edge on. And again, it's going to get better with every accumulation. I don't want to blow it out. And I don't think we need as much red. That's pretty cool. Oh yeah, you can, with each exposure, we'll clean up a lot of this noise. This will all disappear. But you can see that beautiful dust lane. Just awesome. I never use effects live. I could use the Gaussian blur, but I don't think I will. We'll keep it real. I can't see my keyboard. I'm trying to type. The focal length of the 127 is about, it's around between 800 and 900 if I remember correctly, but I have a focal reducer flattener on it, which gets it down in the 500 or 600 millimeter range, so not a ton. In fact, that would be like a large prime lens on a Canon or Nikon or something, right? Something that you would use if you were filming animals in the jungle. So not super big, but that's what makes it so good for wide field, deep sky imaging. It's like a sweet spot in the middle, but the 20-inch is basically a Canon, right? And that is a planetary monster. It's for tiny objects, and it just is. It makes, honestly, it's a visual scope, so it's the kind of thing I would bring to star parties and such, and just knock people out. No camera needed. Your eye can almost see color in that thing. It's so huge. And, it's 10 feet tall as well, so you have to use a ladder to even use it. It's just hilarious. Put a camera on that, and you're blown away, but it doesn't have a very wide field. So it's basically for a planetary nebula. This galaxy here would just basically barely fit into the field of view, even of this camera. But you'd be basically walking on the surface of it. Pretty awesome. this year we're gonna go out to Stellafane, which is in Springfield, Vermont. If you, Dan, if you like astronomy and you are willing to come and join us, we'll be camping up at Stellafane. It's basically the oldest astronomy convention in America. It's up in the woods of Springfield, Vermont, not far, and it's just 1,000 families camping in a really dark skies for a weekend with all their telescopes and all the kids and everything. It's hilarious. It's a blast, and you'll see a lot of those big scopes. You'll be able to look through tons of scopes, look at tons of stuff. It's not just astronomy. There's a lot of other types of science there. Geology, people come. The meteorite men used to come all the time. But we'll be going there, and I'd love to see it. It'd be great. But yeah, Stellafane, look it up. We'll have our second accumulation here in just a moment. But yeah, the Sombrero. What a cool galaxy, man. Oh, and the 20-inch is a 2,000 millimeter native, but the image scale is just so huge that it's just amazing. It's very cool. All right, here we go. We should have our second accumulation any second. Oh yeah, and it cleaned up a lot of that grain right off the bat. Let's do some automatic. Oh my god. Take a bit of that red out of there. Cleaner. That's super cool. The core just looks awesome. It's so bright, and then to see the dust lane on the outside, it's rare. It's kind of a rare galaxy the way that it's laid out, or at least we don't see a ton that are edge on like that with dust lanes. Well, Stellafane is a visual astronomer's paradise. Right? Uh, there are going to be tons of people doing astrophotography, but honestly, that's a development from the last 10 or 15 years. Right? This has been going on for 140 years, and it was a visual smorgasbord, and by that I mean tons of telescopes for visual, and the most purest snobs you'll ever find, which is great because you can cruise around and actually look in an eyepiece and not have to be worried about bugging people because they're imaging. And like, hey, can I see what you're looking at? Well, you can look on the laptop screen. you know? No, instead it's more like, hey, hop up on the ladder, tell me what you see, describe it. Everybody's eyes are slightly different, and that was my taste when I was a kid. Dan, it was at Mohawk basically. When I walked out onto the football field and saw Dave Kelly out there with a telescope, and I started talking to him, and that was the end of it for me. From that point on, I was an astronomer. And yeah, he brought me to all sorts of star parties and stuff, and Stellafane was the kicker. That was just awesome. So many families just on a hill, all doing the same thing. And it's just a blast. It's such a kind of wholesome experience. I love it. Yeah, this is a really cool. Now, I'm gonna only do 20 minutes on these, just to move along. But the next one I'm gonna do is probably something you haven't seen. We're gonna do a globular cluster. and it's going to be awesome. And it's huge too, so it won't be hard to see a lot of detail in the first image. But I'm going to let this guy go for 20 minutes. As I said, we've got 10 minutes currently. We have a minute and 20 seconds left on the third exposure. And then we'll let it do one more, and then we'll switch again. Oh, you're in Maryland. Yeah, yeah. First of all, Killington, yes, awesome. Really, it just brings you back to like our youth, before there was a whole lot of light pollution. But Maryland, yeah, that can be tough. You're basically in the beltway, and it's all light pollution. You're probably a Bortle 3 or a Bortle 4, and I'm a Bortle maybe 6 on a good day. Well, not even, probably a Bortle 4.5 to 5. The higher on the Bortle scale, which only goes up to what 8, the better your skies are, right? But most of the cities, if you're in Boston or in New York, you're like a Bortle 3, Bortle 2. You're not as bad as that in Maryland, probably. But still pretty rough, You have to probably look up above the horizon 40 degrees before the light dome is gone. For me, it's about 15 to 20, so it's not that bad. And mainly it's my neighbors, because I'm out in the boonies. And I have a neighbor that he basically runs a prison. It's just lights 24 hours a day. Fortunately, he's been good to me the last couple of years, as I've begged him to shut off the lights aimed at my house. Just, you don't need those. But the backside of his house, I swear to God, man, they never see the sky. He's got kids too, tons of them. No idea why, but that's how they love to live. That's Virginia, huh? Jeez. All right, yeah, that's smoothing out quite nicely. Look at that. That just looks great. Okay, what are we looking at? 12, 20. So we'll do another 20 minutes after this, and then I'll probably pack it in for tomorrow. One more really cool object. Oh, nice. That doesn't sound too bad. I was picturing like you were in the city or something. Well, by city I mean a city larger than Greenfield, right? Greenfield's not so bad. Yeah, our guiding is good. We got good numbers. That's a nice periodic log. Just nudging it back and forth, keeping it on that center line. Good stuff. You can see how much cleaner the image is now. Just looks awesome. looking forward to Stellafane this year. COVID kind of shut everything down, so a lot of those star parties and other gatherings just kind of stopped for a couple years. But I think this year they're firing it back up. Usually happens in towards the end of July. Weather is always really nice, assuming it doesn't rain. It's a great time. And of course, I'll often, every year I'll do something here at the house at the observatory. I can maybe show you a picture of the observatory, at least the back side of it. Let's see what we got here. Where's the picture? I thought I had one here. Oh, I guess I don't. Well, I must. Oh, I know where it is. Hold on. There we go. Give that just a sec. You'll see me bouncing around. I don't have it mapped to a MIDI controller, so I had to manually grab it. But this is kind of a screen that I had set up that I haven't used in a while. It's coming. Here it comes. Don't mind all that garbage. One more time around. There it is. Okay. So that's the back side of the observatory. The observatory is two observatories. So the back side that you're looking at is a clamshell. It's a building that opens up, and inside it is the 20-inch telescope, right? And then in front of it is the domed observatory. That's where I'm actually in right now. You can see the white dome. It's a dome just like any other observatory you've ever seen. And then you can see my cat Darla. This probably was in 2012, just after I built the back side of the observatory. But yeah, that's an image of it. It's a cool building. It just opens up like a clam. Pretty neat stuff. Let's go back here. Yeah, it is. Yeah, my crazy mind. I would just design these things on paper and try to figure out how to build them for as cheap as humanly possible. It has to be on a pier, so it's isolated from the building. So everything has to be like concrete, or at least for where the telescope's sitting on, or really heavy pavers. And I'll bring my ideas to a buddy of mine who is a carpenter, and he just laughs for a few months, and then I finally convince him with like a case of beer to come over and help me, and and we get it done. Everything has worked. We've been doing that for 20 years now. It's hilarious. All right, we're just about there with, and we got our 4 images. Looks cool. Sombrero Galaxy. I might as well do 25 minutes. Only have 2 minutes left. And then I'll save it off and we'll move over to M13, the Hercules Globular Cluster. I'll just let this go for another minute and 50 seconds and see what we get. Yeah, this is cool. I'm glad you showed up, man. You're definitely keeping me occupied, and it's cool to chat with you, kind of in this weird one-way audio text situation, but still, it's cool, man. I hope you're well. Good man, he looked it up. I haven't even looked yet, so thank you for telling me. I'm glad to hear that they are opening it. Yeah, it's going to be great. My daughter will be back, hopefully, for a few months. She's down in Florida. She works at Disney, and it's been obviously a few years since I brought her there, so I'm going to try to get her to go. I absolutely play guitar. all the time, almost every day. A couple bands, had them for years, and working on a new band right now. It's a Disturbed tribute band. We're having a ball, and we'll be playing that out real soon. And I'll never stop playing guitar. Man, I got a million hobbies, right? But certain ones are large, loom large in my life. Astronomy, music. How about you? All right, 1 second. There we go. That looks super cool. Smoothed out nicely. We'll save that off. Good man. Yeah, I'm glad to hear at our advanced age, we're still rocking it, right? I mean, I'm still frickin' 16. You know what I mean? It's like ridiculous. Blink your eyes. Oh, are you recording? Love to hear some of your stuff, man. Anytime you want to link me, please do. Okay, got our images. Clear the histogram. Bust out of here. Okay, 13. I'm just putting in the name for my records. Back out. Stop guiding. Crank our gain. Set our exposure to 1 second. And we'll go to Hercules. Okay. You can see it right there on the screen. We'll do a quick plate solve, center it. It's not quite in the center, but that's center enough. Center adjacent. Let's see how our guiding is. That looks pretty good. Keep going, baby. Alright, rock that. And we'll set our gain. We'll do 2-minute exposures. Whoops, not 90 seconds. 2 minutes. Live stack. Alright, we'll give it 2 minutes. Yeah, so this is a globular cluster. I don't know if you've ever seen one. It's a massive cluster of stars, thousands of stars, hundreds of thousands of stars that are gravitationally bound. This is one of the largest from the Earth perspective. Nice. Well, we'll have it in 1 minute and 10 seconds. Jeez, it's getting cold in here. Yep, 38. I do have. I'm in kind of like a small little insulated room that I built into the observatory. It's insulated on like three sides, and then there's a just a curtain here on the other side. And I do have a couple heaters in here that I can use. I just try and never to use them. You know, I'm a man. But when it's like 10 degrees out or 0 or even less, yeah, I turn them on. I'm just wearing sweatpants and a hoodie here. So I haven't actually planned for this well. Typical. And here we go. 15 seconds. This should look pretty cool, especially after a few integrations. It would certainly like 5-minute exposures, but I ain't got time for that. Nice. Okay. Look at that. Come on. Blow it right the fuck out. No, look what it does to the core. I don't like that. Yeah, okay, cool. It's insane. You know, obviously we have other galaxies in the image, but that is, you gotta wonder what they're, you know, if there's any life on any of those stars. There might be. It's possible. But if you see this little galaxy, now, you know, I have no way of, I mean, I could look it up and see where that is in relation to this. This is probably way in the foreground and that's way in the background. That galaxy could just be absolutely massive. You know, it could have, you know, 500 million stars, and, you know, 0.001% of them has liquid water, which would still be like 10 systems with water in it, you know. Per galaxy is 100 billion galaxies. Anyway, you get the idea. Life is possible everywhere, and it's so far away, we would never know if there even was life in another, even the nearest star. It's so people can wonder and guess, you know, but it's mathematically impossible that there wouldn't be. Agreed. Good night, Trace. Thank you. Um, Cooling a sensor, yes. So in the olden days, when we were converting webcams, you know, the original, you know, creative Sound Blaster webcams and stuff like that, you know, 20 years ago, you know, early 90s, that kind of thing. The sensors were so noisy that if you used them, you know, in normal weather, and let's say in the summer, 70 degrees or something, let alone out west where we're much hotter, you would just see so many hot pixels, and it would just be a mess, right? So, but if you could cool the sensor, get it colder, the hot pixels would disappear, right? I know there's tons of technical rationale for why this happens. I'm not going to go into that depth, but I will tell you that basically any sensor these days that is used in astrophotography is cooled, with the exception of like Hubble or James Webb, because they're already in space and it's already unbelievably cold. But basically what we use is what's called a Peltier cooler, which is like kind of like a hot plate. So one side would be hot and it would draw cold from the other side. And it's a electromagnetic cooler, essentially, that is just will chill a sensor. So it's on the back plane of a sensor, and you can use electricity to cool that sensor. So you can see over here on the right, I have the cooler on this particular camera. So this is a specifically designed astronomical camera, whereas, say, like a DSLR would not have a cooled sensor. They're very well made sensors. They can produce incredibly good images, but their sensors are not cooled. So we like to use sensors that are specifically designed for astrophotography. And also, I live in an environment where summer is short, winter is long. It's cold here all the time, but I'll still shoot extremely cold. So I'm setting the temperature of this guy at negative 10 degrees Celsius, right? It's so cold out right now. It's not very cold. It's like, we're hovering near 40 degrees, but it's only having to barely work to keep it at that chilled temperature of negative 10 C. So that if there were any hot pixels on this sensor, it would eliminate them. Now, this particular Sony sensor, the IMX571, is a very good sensor. It doesn't really have hot pixels. It kind of does here and there, but more or less it doesn't. Not like, I have other cameras, probably 10 different ones, and some of them do still have hot pixels. With that said, we use what's called calibration frames. And if you look here, pre-processing, I have subtract dark. So a dark is me covering the sensor and taking images at the exact same gain, which I'm running 110, and exposure length. And I'll take, say, 10 images at 2 minutes long at that gain, at that temperature, of nothing, of blackness, right? Dark. And that basically I'll then subtract out from these light images that we're taking. So I'm subtracting that data, and it's anything that is on the sensor, any hot pixels, cold pixels, blue pixels, whatever. It will then just subtract from that image. So I'm taking 10 images of those. I would average them together as a master dark, and you can see I've done that, and I am subtracting that from these light frames in real time. Also, I then take a flat frame image, which is a light image that's blurry and super short that would see any defects in the imaging train, like a dust bunny or a piece of hair or something that was just in there microscopic, but that would show up if I didn't. So I also I average 10 of those together and subtract them as well. There are other types of calibration frames, but these are the two main ones that I would take and use in live imaging. And of course, I'm averaging all that stuff together and outputting frames when I save these, and then I will use those calibrated frames and stack a crap ton of them together to make a final image, which I'll publish in a week or so or whatever. But that's basically what it's all about. So the sensors are much better now than they used to be, but we still use calibration frames to subtract crap from them. So yeah, lots of things going on. Cooling the sensor to try to make it more efficient. Some calibration frames. I mean, I'm getting kind of in the weeds here, but you're a smart guy, and I think you totally understand what I'm saying. But yeah, it's a lot of stuff. People really have no idea what it takes to do astrophotography. Which is a entire hobby or science beyond just visual observing in telescopes. There's a lot of hats that you need to wear to be able to put this all together. It's becoming easier and easier as science kind of improves situations. Everybody's got a cell phone in their pocket, but none of those cell phones can do this. Even despite the fact that you'll see a picture of the moon every once in a while from somebody on a Galaxy S20 or whatever it is, like, look, and it looks amazing, but it's AI, so don't believe it. Anyway, yeah, this is just getting better and better and better with every exposure. It's only been 10 minutes, and nice and clean, gorgeous structure, super cool. If I did 2 hours on this, it would just really make this all nice and clean in here. It would look great. You're welcome. Sorry for the long-winded explanation. There's a lot involved, yeah. It used to be harder, you know. Go back 20 years, I had to work a lot harder for it. But you know, now I'm used to it. But still, a lot of the procedures are very similar, if not the same. But the technology is definitely improved. We can do this basically live now, and I can stream it. You know. None more black. It's already at 11. Exactly. You're right, Nigel. Yeah, I know. You're taking pictures of nothing. It's hilarious. And subtracting nothing from something. Only astronomers, you know. But it makes a huge difference. Yeah, this is cool. I haven't actually had a chance to get out and do this for any length of time in a couple months. The weather's just been so crappy. But I hope you'll log in, and if you get a few minutes tomorrow, I don't know if you have to work or whatever, I'll post a Facebook link to the live stream of the eclipse, and feel free to join, man. Rock and roll. We'll let this go for a few more integrations, and we'll save it off, and it'll be a successful night of imaging. Globulars are just so cool. Have you noticed all the blue stars in there, interspersed? It's amazing. Those would be hot young stars, just there for spring break. Yeah, I have to work too. I don't know if you heard me say that earlier, but I kind of prepped them and told them I was going to be doing this, and you know, I can be logged into work on another screen while I'm doing this. So we'll see how things go. Hopefully nothing's blowing up. I work at a hospital. I work remotely, so it's great. But you know, I hopefully nothing's in an emergency situation. Man, I don't know if you can see the blue stars on the live stream. It looks, because I'm watching the live stream with the audio off, and it doesn't quite look to me like it's showing the detail that I see. Maybe. I know. I'm gonna pull a George Jetson, you know. I'm gonna be a little later than I thought. It'll just be all recordings. But the problem with that is I'll be live streaming and they'll all have the link to it, so we'll see who joins. I'm sure I won't be alone. There's going to be a ton of people that that are live streaming the eclipse, as well as NASA. I mean, this is going to be a global event, even though it's totality in America. It'll still be partial eclipse for a lot of the parts of the continents. Yeah, you can't really see it in the live stream. I'll bring up the blue a little tiny bit here, but I don't. The other thing is, if you're in YouTube, if you click the little gear icon at the bottom of the video, make sure it's set to the highest resolution possible. You're probably defaulted at 480p. And I think it can at least do 720, and that'll help a little bit with the accuracy of the colors. I don't want to make fake blue, but I'll give it a little tiny bit. And bring up the vibrance. 720. Yeah. Well, that's as good as I've got. I'm my observatory computer is a little bit long in the tooth. It's still a Windows 7, and OBS Studio has been complaining to me about that. I just haven't had time to throw in a window, build a new Windows 11 for it. But maybe I will in the coming weeks. I don't think I have any options to crank that stream up higher than that, though, do I? Let me see. Stream settings. Yeah, Win 7, I know. I've got 20 computers, so this is just the one out here. I don't see any way to crank it up. Huh. I'll have to do a little research before bed. See what I can do about that. At least get to 1080p, you know? Were you already at 720 on it, or was it lower than, was it defaulting lower? Oh, nice. Okay, good. Alright, I got one more exposure. Save it off and we'll pack it in. Almost at the 1 a.m. mark. Yeah, Dan, I really appreciate you hanging out with me, man. Much appreciated. Yeah, that looks really cool. Good to hear, man. Good to hear. Yeah, most people say the same thing, when they kind of encounter astronomy. They're just, you know, not like blown away, but, they get kind of a warm and fuzzy. Some people freak out, like, oh, it can't be real, that kind of stuff. But for a lot of people, it's like, oh, it's really cool. And certainly I feel that way. But I'm used to it. Alright, 10 seconds. I gained another subscriber. 88 subscribers. Soon I'll be at 1 million. No. Alright, let's jack that up a little bit. Very cool. Save that off. Okay. All right, Dan. Thanks, man. I'm gonna pack it in. Really appreciate it. Hope I run into you tomorrow. If not, I understand. I know we're all busy. If you do happen to come in, drop me a note, and we'll catch up and have a great night. Okay.